Big Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another exciting episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And with us, we have returning guest from the Bigfoot Barn up in Northeast Ontario, the most famous Bigfoot Barn Bigfoot show on YouTube, Mr. Blayne Tyler. And he's going to be covering some of his more exciting Bigfoot encounters and showing us some of his video and pictures and kind of walking us through his, maybe we could say, best of Blayne Tyler. So for you guys that don't already know who he is and haven't been following his channel, BLAYNETYLER on YouTube, go check it out. He's been doing this stuff for years and years and years, and he gets more pictures of Bigfoot than just about anybody else out there that you can actually believe. So welcome to the show, Blayne.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Duke. How's everything going over there in Big Sky country?
Well, it's early spring here, and unfortunately, one of my best friends here just passed away a couple days ago, and a bunch of folks probably, by the time they hear this, will already know about it. Kevin Lang from the Glag Saga was found dead on his floor a few days ago, and it's a terrible situation. We all feel horrible about it. Obviously, he had a lot of friends and fans, and one of those people that, everybody that met him just loved him. He was a super nice guy, so it's been really tough. And to let everybody know that's interested in this, I'm going to be putting out some more Glag swag on my channel for anybody that wants to get a Glag t-shirt or whatever. It'll be at Teesprings. I'll have the link up on the screen for people to look at there. And also let everybody know that please keep Kevin's daughters especially and the rest of his family and friends in your prayers, because it's been really tough on them. I spent 12 hours on the phone the first day telling everybody that Kevin had passed. And as I just said to Blayne earlier, social media doesn't work worth a damn because nobody had seen any notices on it or anything. And I had to, every person I talked to, this is the first they had heard of it. So miserable day for me. But I am also going to be reissuing the entire Glag Saga in better format, better, higher quality audio. By the time you guys see this episode, a lot of it will probably be out already. So,
yeah, that's tragic, man. Yeah. That's tragic. That guy.
Like a national treasure, basically, because there's nobody else out there that's come forward that's got a story anything like his that got to be best friends with a Bigfoot for 5 years.
Yeah, he's like a habituation pioneer before there even was such a thing. And, it's my condolences to everybody involved there with having to deal with the loss such as that.
Yeah, we did actually get to, this is the Sasquatch Make-A-Wish Foundation here, apparently, because we made his wish come true and reunited him with Glag. He got to see his buddy again last summer. So I'm really happy that happened. But yeah, he went through a lot of hell the last few years with his medical conditions and his life situation, and also with all of the threats he was getting from certain parties that should get their noses out of other people's business and back the hell down. Because if the boot ever gets on the other foot, it's going to be swinging to your ass really hard.
Yeah. Yes, that's a terrible situation. Having to deal with all that, plus come out with the truth of something historic like his relationship with Glag.
Yeah,
right? Glag.
And if
Glag. Okay.
If you're just telling some wild story, why would anybody threaten you? Who cares? It's fiction. They don't go and threaten people that are telling crazy, fanciful tales. They promote them on YouTube. You see any gigantic channels that you think are actually showing you actual Bigfoot evidence? You're sadly mistaken.
Yeah. No, it's just still kind of a shock for everybody there. But from my part, the one thing I could connect with the guy was, having experiences with the Sasquatch at a young age. And for me, that's how it all started. North Central Ontario, around Algonquin Park. running into a family of them when I was just I don't know, how old would you be in grade 6? I remember it was grade 6 because my brothers were in grade 8. So I
Probably.
don't know, I was like 10 or 11 or something maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And you're about the same age I was when I had my first encounter. And it's interesting how many of the people that are really fairly successful at this, that really have a lot of the information, it's taken them a whole lifetime. They've been interested in it since they were kids, or they had an encounter when they were a kid. And, there's a long list of Bigfoot actual reputable researchers that you can go look at that are in that situation too. A bunch of the Bigfoot outlaws are like that. Bear was saw these things when he was a little kid and had his dad explain to him what they were. You know, so did anybody else in your family have any idea about these things, or was it just you?
No, well, no, I kept it to myself because, at the time, 10-year-old, there might have been one book in the library at the school on it, which is outdated, not very factual, just, basically they're monsters, or it's just a book a cartoon book for kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so I kept it to myself because I wasn't sure of what I was seeing. It was like the southwest part of Algonquin Park. Me and my brothers were with a friend that took us up to his hunting camp off season, and I was a young guy, so I didn't drink any beer and stuff like that. And they were all doing stuff like that. And so I'd go for hikes, and just this one day I went a little further and crested over a hill and down into an opening, and there they were, right there. What are these gorillas doing here in Ontario? Kind of first thing that hits you, right? And then, that's all you can relate them to, is right, because you don't really understand that they're similar, but they're a lot different too. They're more like people, right? They are people. And so
what
I carried that.
did you see then? How many of them did you run into? Set the
Well,
stage. Tell us the story here.
well, with that, just to catch everybody up to speed, there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, but they were just on the perimeter of the thorns and the thickets and stuff, so you could see outlines. There's one or two that you could definitely see, but I don't know if they kind of group together, and then so you lose track of where one starts and another one finishes, right? And then the little ones hide and they duck, and then but the big ones you can make out that it was some kind of huge gorilla thing. And then I just, you're kind of in shock, and I just kind of turned around and with eyes wide and just walked back to the hunting camp. And then that night, they were outside the hunting camp, and they were like walking around, I think, and tapping on the sides of the walls a little bit. And I had the bunk right underneath the window. So
Oh God.
not a lot of sleep there that night. And then so that kicked it all off for me. And I've always had an interest, but I was always really fearful, and you sort of know where they are after you get some experience with them. You sort of know what the terrain that they like, or the topographical kind of topography that they like. So it's not too hard to go and find them. It's harder actually filming them than finding them, kind of thing, right? Because of their stealth abilities and how fast and they can move and how well they can blend in with their hollow hair and everything. But just to catch everybody up to speed, so I kind of fearful going into the woods, knowing that these fierce creatures were in there. And I say fierce not because they were fierce, it's just because they're intimidating, scary looking. So it just seeing them at a young age is scary. Does a psychological job on you. But
well, and then there's the other size difference too. I mean, when you're 10 years old, you're like half the size of an adult, and even when you're an adult, these things tower over you and make you feel small by comparison. So when you're a little kid and you see them, it's like you just ran into King Kong and half his family at the same time.
Yeah, and I was like a little skinny blonde kid, timid kid, and then the next time I had an encounter that I know of, I say that I know of because you always get that feeling that you're being watched when you're camping or you're hiking on a trail. But the next time I had a sure thing encounter was out in Alberta in '92 at, I think, at Honeymoon Lake, I think it was called. And I was hiking counterclockwise, and then all of a sudden the tail end of it, I started hearing snaps in the bush of something following me. So I was thinking bear, and I didn't, yeah, like grizzly bear. So I quickened my pace about running, and right at where I parked my car, right in front of it, there was a sand mound, a huge sand mound from, I guess, the road crew piled it there to have a handy if for wintertime. And then so I hiked over it and back into my little silver Honda, and then when I got in the car and the door nice closed, safe, I was looking up through the window, and this huge gorilla head thing peeked over the mound, but it was so fast I couldn't, like, did I just see what I just seen kind of thing, right? But you know, the head was like, I don't know, like much bigger, like almost like a small beach ball size, I guess. I don't know, trying to come up with the right dimensions. But you know, it was like dark hair, but it was a little brownish from, I guess, from the sun and stuff all summer long, but kind of a leathery gray face. But you don't see it. You see it enough to have nightmares over it. But at the time, you know, you just, it's surreal, right? I don't know how else to. So that was like in '92. I was like early 20 or something like that. I forgot how old I was. Maybe the 20-ish, 22, 24, something like that. And then not long after that, when I left out west, I came back, and that's when Freeman got his footage. And I'm like, I always kick myself. I wish I would have known he was out there, not far away from me, just the other side of the border, that I could have went and, maybe learned from him, because I was kind of a scared casual researcher. You know, I want to see one, but I want to see one at the other side of a lake kind of thing, right?
Yeah. The ideal setup. I want to see one from inside of a tank. Yeah, I had a guest on the show that got to do that. He felt real safe.
Yeah, like I guess that's what they call romantic kind of view, but
yeah, like I told him, I said the only way you could be safer is if you were standing on the deck of a battleship watching one on shore with field glasses.
Yeah, I mean, so that's sort of how I went about it, and I had to combat my fear to really dive into the woods. And so yeah, well, it's just quickly about Freeman. So I was waiting for a big spin-off of that to come about, and there was a little bit of coverage, and then just went back to normal, that they don't exist. And I'm like, I was expecting some kind of Patterson footage, kind of worldwide coverage and all that, and I think it lasted for a week, and then back to regular programming kind of thing. And I always was a little puzzled by that, how Freeman got his a confirmation footage of the Patterson footage. So yeah, there are out there. There's not just one.
Well,
kind of thing, right?
Keep in mind what the time period was there. By then, they had several more decades to get their iron grip on mainstream media, so that it didn't put out anything they didn't want.
Right, and well, that's actually that's the thing too. There wasn't a lot about it. You had to like buy a magazine, or there might have been one buried article where the media made fun of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then I returned to Ontario, moved around a little bit, and I finally, I went back north. Back north. But I didn't really dive into it. But I was wondering why nobody else was getting any footage, and when there were thousands of them. And so I'm like, well, I just kind of overcame my fear after doing a lot of research when the internet first became available, as far as covering all this stuff in some sites. And so then when I moved to Eastern Ontario, I just kind of went out and did it. And I'm not saying this as a bragging kind of thing, but it only took me 2 hours to find and film a whole group of them. Like, that includes driving from my house. I just looked at a map. I say, okay, there's a hydro cut here. This place looks pretty remote. There's not a lot of houses. All right, off I go. And I took my son and his friend, and the first video I called Sasquatch Highway, or Return to Sasquatch Highway. I had an old shitty hardware store camera, so excuse the footage on that one, and a few others. But anyway, so I went out to this hydro cut, parked, boys got out, we went south, found some weird rock pile. Sent you a picture of that, where there was kind of like a half-ass blind. So I'm like, well, maybe hunters did this, but the boulders were the size of sidewalk slabs, but thick, like a foot thick. I'm like, so what? 4 guys got together to build this little shitty wall or something. So I'm like, okay. And so then I went north, and just 10 minutes into hiking, like actual hiking, but a lot of deacon and diving around creeks. And where I live where I go, it's in the Canadian Shield. So people got to realize that you can't just walk in a straight line. You got to go over rock faces and through crevices and jump across creeks or get around a wetland area. And then I came to a hill, looked left where there's a bit of an open area, kind of opened up. And there's this huge X with multiple strands of tree branches woven together. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking for prints, but the ground's not the best. Canadian Shield, there's some moss and there's some muddy areas. And I'm like, oh, geez, this shit just got real. Right. So then I kind of went out of there, and I felt like scared because like that being watched. And I kind of went out of there, and I told my kids, my boy and his friend, why don't you guys go back to the car? I'm going to like look around a little bit here. And so they went. I should have given my keys just in case something happens to me. I've always regretted that. They would have been stranded there. But anyway, yeah, well, you know what I mean? You think of your kids first kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So then I started snooping around, and sure enough.
On the other hand, if the Bigfoot came out and scared them and they had the keys, you would have been stranded there.
Yeah, but I'm talking like, the kids were my age when I first went to honor. They could better them have keys to get in, have some shelter than a grown adult, right? So I was just thinking as a dad, right? But so yeah, they were right there and they were watching me, and there's a clip that's not on my channel because I got so much heat from actually filming them. So it got taken down, and I sent it to Bindernagel to have a look, Dr. Bindernagel. But I mean, the quality of it is still that hardware store camera. So that was part of the trolling. So yeah, I can accept that. But I went back and I got other footage. The first one back was Return to Sasquatch Highway. Okay, I just did some rock knocks in here. Anyway, that tower over there is where I want to be when I leave the fruit. I'm going to leave it in one of my old hats so it has my scent on it. Plus I seen you wearing a hat. So maybe it'll be the start of a beautiful friendship. Or maybe they won't let me get by there on the way back. I mean, my dog made it about halfway, and then she came back up that hill over there. And then she wanted to go away from our vehicle, which is way back there. So she came down that path, and we came over here. And I'll film this way. Just over the mound, you can see the pop can there. That's right underneath that is where my print's curing. I don't know what's back in there, but I'm really curious to see if they tore down their structure or took down their barriers. Because maybe I missed it because I had to go around waterways, and plus having to lift my dog up over rocks and stuff, I had to take a different route than before. But anyway, back at that tower, between those last two towers, that's where I came across the barriers and then that shelter. So who knows where they are? I mean, they could be on this side of the clear cut, on that side. I just got finished scanning, and I got my dog. She's over there. You can see her there. I got her. Sit. Lay down. Lay down, Sam. You lay down. Lay down. I got her under the trees. My backpack's on her leash. She's pretty good. She's trained, but she's trained to be quiet too when she sees big animals. But a while back, she got all scared that film I made, video of, what was it called? Archers, Barriers, Dens, Tree Fort, Prince Omai or something like that. Anyway, she got really scared when I went in there. And it's the first time I heard her kind of whimper bark. But who knows? Okay, so it's just a little vid of what's going on here. Maybe some other people can see the big smellies hiding behind trees and stuff. It's hard to see them when you're out here because everything blends, but with the digital aspect of the cameras, you can play around with it and zoom in and see shapes like the one person did with that shape I walked right by when I was going back to the nest in between the barriers and the nest. I walked right by, I don't know, six footer or so shape. And I think I made a comment like, yikes, I walked right by that shadow and or that dark shape, and it could have reached out and grabbed me or something to that effect. Anyway, come on, print. It's going to be difficult for it drying in this rain. But anyway, next time I'm going to put this Coke can up there so I don't miss the mark again going around waterways and stuff. A lot of water up here, thousands of lakes, untold rivers and streams and that. I mean, you can walk 100 meters in any direction and find water, pretty much. Pretty rugged country in here though. See the Canadian Shield, and the hills just keep getting bigger the further north and east you go. Or actually west too, you get into other areas. Alright, well. Man. So I keep making short vids here because you never know, I might have pissed them off the other day. I was thinking about that afterwards. I went in there not expecting for them to be home. You know, I was just, another shelter shot, and then I'm like, damn, there's a head right there, and look up, look around, find a print, find a body lay impression, and then I videoed those snap branches, and then I panned back, and then on the reverse pan, I caught the gray guy just staring at me like that, and I'm like, wow, he's like 6 feet away, and that big black one was about maybe 8 feet away. But I'm going to say she, but I don't know if it's she, but it was up on its elbow, sort of watching me, laying on its side, and I'm like, dang. But anyway, yeah, I on the way over there, I heard a little bit of snaps and kind of faint kind of bird sound things. So I kept stopping and then looking around, because, you don't want these things sneaking up on you while you're watching one. So, anyway, I'll have a look over here. Okay, something tried to outflank me here. I don't know. Maybe it's an advantage being in the forces, tracking and hunting other soldiers, and search and rescue volunteer there, and did some guide in the Rockies. Maybe it's an advantage when you get into something like this to have those abilities under your belt. And I mean, people were asking, why didn't I slow down the pan? Well, I was nervous. There was things around me. I knew where two were, but I didn't know where the other ones were. So, I mean, I don't mind taking a little bit of risk, but I want to make it home to my family too. But then again, all I got is my big hunting knife and a lot of courage and some prayers, I guess. I don't think these things will hurt you, at least not in a day. So, alright, let's wrap up this boring vid. Have another shot at my print here. Looks like something stepped here too. You can see where it's lower there. And then an impression here. It's low here. I don't know if you can see that's low right in there. And then here it's squished down again. But those ones weren't as good. And there's some dead, something that went through there. Anyway. And then off down in there. But I don't want to go in that thicket. You can only see about 20 feet in front of you if you get down in there. Alright. Back to print. Okay, this is taking me forever. My dog, who's usually charging around, is fighting me every step of the way. She's laying down, looking around. Every time we get up, she tries to go back to the van. So I don't know if she's smelling something I don't smell, or she's seen something, I don't know, but the other day she was, running around with us. So, she's acting real chicken for some reason. So maybe there's something in the woods here that I'm not seeing. Because normally she's being half rowdy shepherd, she charges at anything that moves. So, just gonna take our time, let her have a rest. See, ears back, everything. What's going on, Sam? Sam? No, we're not going back to the van. We need to go down this hill and up over there. So, just gonna leave her there for a second. Sit. Sit. Lay down. Okay, here we go. I decided to stick it out in the pouring rain. Throw my mold in. That sucker's bigger than my 16-inch knife. There was it's a left, and there's some heavy, I don't know what you call it, crabgrass on the little, instep sort of thing there. So I think that and a rock on this edge deflected it. But you can, let me get my, get that in there. I just seen a bit more of a toe. Sorry. I just seen a bit more toe that I didn't have any plaster in. Yeah, I know, the cheap stuff, but hey, if you're throwing them out all the time, just in case you get a great one, you use the cheap stuff. I might have to upgrade. Anyway, Sam's enjoying the rest. I don't know if you can tell, but it's just pissing out. But hopefully this sucker won't take too long. I'm gonna go up to the hill here, and I left my can there as a marker. I mean, maybe they'll come and take it. But yeah. I don't know if I do that already, I don't know. But you can see it's at least 2 inches longer than my knife. So, I don't know if they came over. Well, I disappeared behind this mound. So I'm wondering if I went up on that mound, if they'd be closer trying to figure out where the heck I went. Or would they circle around? Because right over here, I showed you from that last hill, down in there is the pond that's getting bigger and bigger. And I'm going to have to jump across it, and I might even have to get wet going across that sucker. So maybe I'll go explore up there just for a quick second. It's going to take a while for this sucker to dry. Alright, there's all my gear. I brought a bunch of food, apples and stuff in to leave for him. And yeah, nice day. Could be worse. Could be lightning. Alright, sorry for the fast pans, but I gotta take my gloves off and it's kind of chilly in the sleet. Alright. And then I just got more and more into it. I found prints. I found a bunch of trees lined up in a row that I called Sasquatch fence. And then one time I was hiking in there, and they all followed me to a hilltop, and I called Sasquatch peekers close up or close in. And some of these I've sent you, so these are all on my channel, my earlier vids. And there's this little charcoal gray Sasquatch hiding behind boulders, peeking over the top, watching me and my dog hike through. And she was scared. And I'm like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And I'm like, I filmed what she was looking at. And I was having trouble seeing what she was seeing. And boy, was my shepherd scared. And she would attack anything except maybe a bear. But so I stepped over her just to give her some comfort and stepped closer to what she was looking at. And I'm filming with this little shitty camera because that's all I could afford. Digital cameras are quite expensive. And sure enough, when I look at the footage and I add some brightness to it, yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them right there, juvies and probably some adults in the tree line that not distinguishable, all peeking behind boulders, following us. And that's why she was always trying to pull me back to the van. I had a van, had like a Ford van at the time, and she was always trying to pull me off the trail back into the hydro cut and go back to the van because she was seeing them and I wasn't. So I mean, that's that's when I first started learning about all their stealth abilities. And I noticed something with the Freeman footage, how the hair kind of went glossy, transparent in the sun, and where the Sasquatch in the shade was easily distinguishable, the shape, and then but when it hit the sun, it was almost invisible. So then I was recalling this and researching this, and I'm like, wow, there really is something to this. And I remember mentioning that to Bindenagel, and he talked about the lore of First Nations out there, saying, you know, obviously supernatural powers or spirits and stuff like that. And I said, well, there's actually something physical to this, I think. And then Dr. Bindenagel, when he visited Ontario, me and a few other researchers, he came and stayed at my house. I showed him a picture when I was in Toronto with Mike, and he was visiting Jim over at Timber Giant and Mike there of Patterson. And I showed him a picture of this, I call a Sasquatch watcher, but it was actually a ridge peaker. He was looking over, and that's the one with picture in picture I sent you. Mm-hmm. He was looking over the ridge, watching me look at this kind of rudimentary blind where a bunch of sticks were put together so they could hide behind and watch what I was doing on the hill, because I started going to visit him. So I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This isn't very far from a campground, and this is 10 minutes up a dirt road to like a kind of a really small subdivision, or like a bunch of houses. And I was just kind of still trying to come to grips with this whole thing, and yeah, so that was my first dive back into it, finding a whole group of them. And I went into the shelter by accident, just following a trail, and they were all in there. And wow, that was something. I mean, I had trouble getting over that one. There's like a shock effect, right? And
well, that's kind of a big eye opener for you, because unlike most researchers, you're not seeing like individual squatch for the most part. You're running into groups of these things all the time. I mean, so that gives you a whole different perspective on than somebody that sees one lone Bigfoot walk across the road. You're well aware of the fact that there's groups of these things, and there's more than one group of them. And how the hell many of these things are there running around out here?
Yeah, and I mean, like, and there's also the fear factor times whatever number. But I went into this shelter that was basically a down tree with branches kind of roughly thrown on it, rudimentary shelter. And there was a big female in there laying down on its side, kind of like you'd maybe lay on your couch. There was a big male at the back trying to hide behind branches and stuff and using their tricks. There was a little guy sitting against a tree, little dark-haired one, and then there was a gray charcoal guy on the other side of the down tree, kind of doing the typical peeking thing. And wow, so I'm in there, and they're all looking at me, and so I'm like, okay, this is unexpected. So then I pretended. Yeah, I know, right? So then I'm,
why the hell did I walk back here again?
I know. I'm thinking that was such a stupid idea to follow the trail right into the shelter, right? And I'm in there and I'm trying not to show fear because they're just intently watching me. And so what I did was I looked, I guess it would be maybe west into the tree line. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff over here. And then I turned in the opposite direction from them and just kind of walked out because I didn't want to look at them on the way out. And then I made my way back into the middle of the hydro cut and I looked back and there they all were with their faces poking through the branches and stuff, watching me.
Oh, God.
And so that's my first attempt at it. Like, I guess I call, really doing it instead of just like being a tourist and trying to spot one from your car kind of thing, right?
Now, at this point, were you getting kind of baffled? Because I've heard this from a few other guys where they had situations like this, and it was like, well, isn't that hard to find these things? Why aren't people talking about this all the time?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that too, but without getting into politics, it's suppressed a lot. Like 95% of it, or whatever percentage you want to come up with, is suppressed, and everybody has their theories. But did
you think that at the time though, that the press is involved, or were you still just kind of boggled, going, why aren't people talking about this all the time?
Well, I'll tell you a little side story. I'll just finish. It's the fear factor is number one. The fear factor that they don't want to scare the general public, and then there's everything else, maybe economics and stuff like that, right? But I believe it's the fear factor. If all the regular people who live in subdivisions and cities knew that these monsters that they've been labeled for decades it really existed, and they're in groups of them just 50 meters off your trail that you hike with your family, they'd be scared. They'd be calling the military in or something like that. That's how scared people would react to it. But with that said, I did mention it to CBC is a really big TV network up here, and I did mention to the affiliate, and I got an interesting reaction where he didn't care whether or not it was real or not. He only cared about the quality of the footage because he wanted to basically probably debunk it all. Yeah. And I only called once. Because I'm like, you should know. I came across a whole group of these Sasquatch creatures in Eastern Ontario, and all he wanted to know was the location and how good my camera was. He didn't want to know anything else. And he was really hard on me, and I was really naive at the time, trying to share this shocking encounter. How I walked into the shelter, and that's all I cared about was it was really like really mean, skeptical towards me, and so I never called back again. I said, it's not a hoax, man. I mean, you'll never hear from me again. This isn't a hoax. I just have a shitty camera from a hardware store, Canadian Tire. So anyway, that was my little run-in with the one and only time that I ever inquired with the media, and then I got that reaction from them. But after that, I realized, well, you know what? If these things were mean and vicious, like all the stories and newspaper articles said, I wouldn't have made it out of there. Heck, my kids wouldn't have made it out of there because they would have, get rid of the eyewitnesses sort of mentality, just eliminate the threat. And they just watched me like calm and coolly. They didn't follow. Actually, I think they did follow me through the trees once I started heading back to my van. But yeah, so dude, they're people. They're people. They're just forest people, but they're just like, I guess you could say primitive in some ways if you want to compare them to our culture. But one thing I'll say, they learn really fast.
Yeah, they're not dumb. A lot of them are super smart, man. They can outfox us pretty easily.
Yeah, so I mean, one of my return trips, I think I posted that Sasquatch speakers close up or close in. Another one where the picture-in-picture one was actually called the Blind Watcher, the one peeking over the ridge, and I think I did send you a link to that video.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And so I started having all these really close encounters, but I always walked out alive, and there was never any rocks or anything thrown at me. There's never any growling or anything like that. And, I'm an adult. I'm not some kid, unarmed kid. And I've never carried a weapon other than a small knife. So I learned later on that they know what guns are for. They may not understand the mechanism of them, but they know what rifles are for. And they probably, I don't know about sidearms, but I've never had one. So maybe that's a lot to do with why I've never been run out of the woods, so to speak, from running into this type of Sasquatch wild man persons. But
so they don't think that you're actually any kind of a danger to them because you're not armed. So you're just more of a curiosity.
Yeah. So, well, they react how they mirror your reaction. If you're scared, and then they think there's something to be fearful of, because if people are carrying rifles, what do? The first time they get scared of a noise in the bush, up comes a rifle, right? So I had no weapons other than maybe bad breath or something, but I know. So then Dr. Bindenagel came to my house, and we went out in the field and we snooped around, and I gave my boy my camera, and there's clips of us as he whips the camera around, a little film and everything. And so, I mean, unfortunately that happened. I had lots of footage of us just in passing pans as he was looking for Sasquatch. And I think he was afraid because they were like doing their little intimidation zapping thing. So, my 14-year-old boy, or whatever his age was at the time, was too nervous to actually hold the camera still and film us while we were investigating the X structure and a couple of rudimentary shelters. But they did manage to pull off, I guess, the first ever conference in Ontario, the Ontario Sasquatch Conference. I call that in my video, and that's actually featured on my channel there.
Nice.
Where my kids grilled them for about 35 minutes about everything under the sun Sasquatch, including the PGF, and why this is the part I really like about it, was why we're so far behind the ball on understanding and accepting them. And he's right on that. He's like, yeah, we should be way further ahead, but people still are getting tripped up over whether or not they exist, when there's people like me, people like Kevin, having like interactions with them their whole lives, and just the ridicule factors just off the charts. And that people keep that kind of stuff to themselves, and it really slows things down. But that was I did a lot.
We here in the U.S. like to think we're number one, but when it comes to Bigfoot research, we are definitely not even close to the front of the pack. The Russians point their fingers and giggle at us.
I think, actually, speaking of Russia, that's where the next, if they can just get some better cameras, that's where the next groundbreaking footage is going to come out of. The remote area of Russia where there's not a lot of activity with humans, and then a logger or a family or something going to get footage, which we've seen, but we've seen through, cameras that, they sell the kids at the hardware store kind of footage, right? Or crappy old cell phone cameras. But
yeah.
So I spent a lot of time working the hydros. And then what I did was I graduated. When I graduated, I moved into working railroads. But I got some prints there from that area. I casted prints, and you know what's the creepiest thing? I don't know if you've ever had this happen. They watch you casting your prints. They're just like 50 feet away inside the trees watching you cast. But what's even more creepy, hard to do than that, is if you have to use the washroom and they're all around you. Okay. And you have to take a number 2 or whatever. Number one you can whip off anywhere, but you have to go number 2, and they're like 50 feet away, a bunch of them, and they're watching you, and you're like, wow, this is this is pretty intense. This is more intense than trying to film them. Is just trying to go go number 2 in the woods, and they're right there watching you with full curiosity. And I never
pulling out their Sasquatch cameras, taking pictures.
Yeah, that's yeah. They're more. I don't know. It's just that's more stressful than actually than most of my encounters with having when nature called, having to do that, knowing that they're only like a few feet away, and you have
Yeah,
to
I couldn't do that. No, I couldn't do that. No.
Oh, I've had to, and believe me, you're looking around when you're
No.
like that. I'd usually find a log or something, and then bury it and everything like that. Try to be like responsible that way, but tell you, you're looking around because your guard is down. There's nothing you can do if one or more of them just decide to walk into you when your pants are down around your ankles. I don't know. There's no courtesy way of bringing that up. It's other than just to say it. But yeah, so Bendinego came to our house and we took him out and we kept in good touch after that. He went to a couple of conferences across the border and stuff like that. And we got that great little video of him answering questions from I call them the next generation of kids. But my kids actually are sick of Bigfoot because of me and my interest, right? Well, I mean, it happens, right? They hear so much of dad talking about it that they don't want to have anything to do it, or they learn that it's real. And my daughter used to tell me she still has nightmares from some of the stuff I used to listen to, the vocals, the screaming and stuff like that. Not that I got, but you know how you listen to other stuff, other researchers' work or whatever. And so it's a real creep factor for them. So and we've had activity around the house, slapping on the house wall, scared my wife quite a bit. Taps on windows, especially when I'm downstairs by myself. A lot of tapping by juveniles on the windows. The odd pitcher in my yard, but I didn't want to interact with them because of the fear factor from my family. But a couple vocals out of my backyard from juvies.
Back up a little bit now. How did you get them showing up to your house in the first place? And then how did you stop them from doing it?
I don't know how they found me, quite frankly. If I can just jump ahead, I'll tell you a story. 10 years ago, something like that. I was in Algonquin and I spotted someone on the other side, on the west end of the park, on the other side of a creek. They were sitting at kind of like where it jets out a little bit before it breaks into the lake at the mouth of a creek. They're sitting in the trees watching all the canoers go by, and I knew they were over there because I've trained my eyes to spot them. And so I did some gestures, I tried to, I'm unarmed, so I try to make friends with them. So I've tried to mimic the Sierra sounds a few times, or if I've, tried to do just some simple body language, sign language, like you see Coco and do something like that, just something that they try to get my intent. And so after that, we went to the outdoor theater, which is on the west end, like 10 clicks inside the gate. And then after that, we drove all the way back to the east end of the gate, and then 20 minutes up a dirt road by car into the second campground of Rock Lake, the A and B. We were in B, the further one. They found me that night at my tent, in my campsite, and right outside my tent. And that's like 80 clicks through water, rivers, swamps. How's that possible? I don't know. But if they can do that, then they can follow me a half hour back or an hour and a half back to my house. And yeah, it wasn't right away. But as soon as I started interacting with them, I started getting activity at the house. And so I'd have to cool things down with the activity, with the fields. Like, everyone, oh, why aren't you posting more? Stuff like that. Well, I'm getting knocks on my window as soon as it gets dark. And I've gone out on the deck, and actually my boy was with me. And we caught at least one of them, maybe two juvies, rummaging through our compost pile. And they went. I didn't even have an audio recorder then. I had still just had that shitty camera, but we both heard it jump the fence and go screaming off across the field into the woods, like maybe a little 5-foot one.
Well, well, then how did you convince them to not be hanging around your house anymore?
Well, just turning on lights and showing no interest in their activity, which was very hard for me to do, because I'm like, well, here's the ones I just struck up a relationship with, and I can't go outside my shelter And I actually did. I went, oh, my wife could have killed me for this. After the house slap, like right before Christmas, my wife was upstairs wrapping presents, and slap on the side of the house jarred my picture frames in the office that I just was leaving. And so after the initial shock, I went outside and I turned all the lights off, and I went outside and I went right to my edge of my deck, being the brave guy that I was. I stayed on the deck. But something very powerful slapped the side of my house, so it made the picture frames move in my office. Wow. And I went outside, and that calmed them down. They were frustrated that I wasn't going outside at my shelter, hanging out with them like I was going to their shelter and hanging out with them. And that was so heart-wrenching not to be able to, if I was a single guy and living in a small trailer or whatever, a small little house, or I'd be outside all night with them, like Kevin, I guess.
Yeah.
But I had a family that was scared and didn't want to walk by windows and stuff like that. So, I mean, I had to, okay, my family, it's not that they weren't being supportive. It's just they were really scared of them, or the creep factor, I guess, of seeing eyes peeking in a window or a head ducked down when they just happen to look out the window, or, like I said, lots of taps on the window. But so, yeah, so that's my home activity stuff. And then I started getting more and more into the outside stuff in the field. And, my channel started to grow, but then also I got more hate. And that was also, at first, that was puzzling. I guess I can relate to Paul Freeman at that stage, where he went out and filmed them and he got some support and secret support, but he got lots of ridicule and scorn from the people who are supposed to be into Bigfooting. The people that always show up to be on camera, stuff like that.
The ones that are always doing the convention circuit and making big lectures all the time.
Yeah, I'm the Bigfoot elite. We're the experts. But, you can't say, well, if you're an expert, why don't you have your own footage? Since, from my point of view, it took me 2 hours from my house to find a whole group. Where's your footage then? But, they're like heaping on scorn on everybody. I guess they were being afraid that you get knocked out of the spotlight off the stage. But so for me, it was a lot of secretive Bigfooting. I haven't posted half of what I've got, and then more than half you don't get any evidence of. And I mentioned this to you. It's just, whatever percentage you want to say of how many times you go into the woods, let's say, and you have activity or encounters, let's say, if you got familiar with a group, let's say it's 25%. Then there's the percentage that you don't obtain evidence because they're too stealthy, happens too fast, too sudden, or in some cases with me, that you've built a rapport and you really feel kind of low down and dirty for trying to get footage of them with your cameras. And at one point with me, they were actually turning my cameras off. I was just trying to do it all casual, not trying to be sneaky, just a quick pan to the right, quick pan to the left. And then a couple of times I'm like, why does my camera keep turning off? And then I turn it on, I watch it, and there it goes off. And the battery's full. And I mentioned this to you before. On one occasion, I might be jumping ahead here a little bit, but I posted a video. Bigfoot bumped into me, or I used to use the name Tracker just to kind of protect my location and my family. But a tracker hit Sasquatch, and those are two videos I posted where I was hiking on a sled trail. And you know how sleds pack the trail down, and you got to really trudge through the trail. Yep. And I was swinging my hands back, trying to keep momentum. And there was at least one right beside me, following me. And I don't know if it was accident, but I think it was on purpose, that it purposely strode into my backswing of my left hand. And, whatever height that would have been, 3 feet or so. And all I felt was like a big thing of muscle that my fist punched, like you were punching like a bodybuilder's thigh or something like that. And it was right behind me, and it sent me into shock. I mean, a lot of people say, "Why didn't you turn and film it?" And I'm like, "Well, I was looking over my shoulder, but it was right behind me, within a foot, breathing on me." And so after that happened, I went and, there was a bit of an opening there to the right. I went and sat on a log, and I think I just stared at the ground for like 2 hours. And then when I came out of it, I just walked back to my this time I had a car. I just walked back to my car, and there could have been 10 of them in the field waving at me. I didn't care. I mean, or I didn't care to even try and, I wouldn't even have cared to try and film them. It's just, you just come to the realization that you're just really out of your league with trying to be stealthy and film them. And I mean, they know you're there before you even close your door, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
And that's why I always laugh at hunters. We're going to get the biggest, toughest gear, and we're going to go out there and we'll get ourselves a Bigfoot. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They know you're coming before you even put the car in or truck in park.